good afternoon, or wherever you are chiming in from. And many of you do know me. I am DeDe Soto with the Soto Law Group. And today we're going to be discussing trust administration, the role of trustees and executors, how to protect them as well, whether it is you or somebody else. All right, so here is a little bit about me. Many of you do know DeDe Soto is a nickname of mine. My legal name is Romelia. And if you have done any work with me already, you actually know that I was named after my Cuban grandmother. They used to call her Romy. And for whatever reason, I got called DeDe. So that is what I go by and what most people know me. I do know we're having lots of people join us still. I am local, went to Cal State Fullerton, then Western State University School of Law. That was originally in Fullerton. Now they're in Irvine or Costa Mesa. I think they even moved. And then Chapman, I did a lot of LLM courses there at Chapman University. All we do is estate planning, right? We only work in that world. Estate planning, trust administration, trust disputes. We do conservatorships, a lot of special needs trust, probate, and of course, we like to protect the minor children, child protection plans. Hopefully some of you have seen that. It's a fun part of our practice. So what happens, right? So today we are talking about trust administration and what you need to do and how to protect yourself if you have been named as a trustee of a trust. So did your loved one have a trust or a will, right? If it's only a will, as you know, it is going through probate, right? So hopefully if you worked with us, you have more than just a will, you also have a trust. Who's in charge? Who's the trustee? Who are the beneficiaries? Are there specific distributions? What is the market value of the assets, the fair market value? What are the final wishes of the deceased? And will you have to go to probate? So initial steps, you got to review the documents, right? If you've been named as a successor trustee and your principal has passed or the grantor has passed, then you got to read what it says. So you got to gather the assets. Hopefully they have a spreadsheet or they have a Schedule A. You look at all the relevant documents. Are there deeds? Are there LLCs? Are there S corporations, right? What does it consist of? And then you notify the beneficiaries and any interested parties, right? Maybe you do open up a probate, right? But right now we're just talking about the trust administration, and I'll just throw in the probate steps if necessary, but we're not talking about probate here. Then second is ongoing administration. So while you're doing the administration, you are in charge of managing the assets. You're in charge of maintaining the records of the accounting, filing tax returns, making distributions to beneficiaries, communicating with interested parties, right? All of that is your responsibility. That's your fiduciary responsibility. Then trust termination, right? Then at some point in time, we're going to make the distributions. We're going to distribute the remaining assets. We have to file a final tax return and we formally close the trust. However, in this section, there could be sub-trusts that have been set up. And if there are sub-trusts that have been set up, then guess what? We have to manage them, continually manage them. So that's super important. So then finally close out. Sometimes people will ask, how long will this take, right? The trust administration can take up to sometimes 2 years, right? It depends on if there's any litigation. It depends on what's going on, right? Are there minors? Do we have to continue to monitor it? It's super important to see what is going on. It's not just one time and this is over and done with in a month. This is something that can go on for a year. Sometimes we have 2 years that we've been doing administration. So it's hard to predict how long it will. Sometimes you have to you have to go to court and do a petition for various different things. So we'll get into that momentarily. So that's the administration big picture, right? The role of the trustee. The trustee, it's super important that I believe that the trustee really should have representation if they're doing an administration. especially if it's of significant assets, right? Because they are responsible for making decisions in the beneficiary's best interest, but all of the beneficiary's best interest. Even sometimes people wear dual roles, right? Sometimes people will wear the trustee hat and they're also a beneficiary. Well, they cannot act in their own interest. They have to act on behalf of all of the beneficiaries, i.e., the trust. So the trustee should be willing and able to step in and take this responsibility. Many times people will disclaim, let's just say, life insurance so that you put it in the decedent's bucket and that becomes asset protection. Handling assets and claims, right? This is a big one. Remember, you as the trustee are in charge of all the assets. You're responsible for the investment. Maybe you're going to sell some of the assets. Maybe you're going to rent out a condo or real property because maybe you have younger beneficiaries and these beneficiaries are not going to be in the, they're not going to be of age. They cannot be in charge of their trust until they're 30 or 35. Maybe it's a sprinkling, right? But what you want to do is you are responsible for protecting these assets. If there's real property, you need to secure the real property. If there's personal property, collect the personal property. We had a 5-carat diamond ring that disappeared several years ago in the process of trust administration. I really don't think it disappeared. I think one of the beneficiaries decided to act in their own interest, right? Are there pets? What are we going to do with the pets? These are sort of the practical things, right? Notify the police department, homeowners insurance, what's going on. But anything that's of high value, you need to remove that immediately. Check and see, is there a personal property memorandum? We're a big proponent of, if you have jewelry, who is going to receive your jewelry, right? And I always say, if you have girls as beneficiaries, you really want to identify who gets the wedding ring, who gets the diamond earrings, who gets the diamond necklace, right? Because that's stuff that people actually fight over. So you want to make sure it's clear as to who will. So it's a little bit of preventive medicine, right? Like everyone here should be taking a look at their own trust and saying, hey, have I crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's, right? What does my trust? Are the people that I have named as a trustee, are they truly the people that we want to serve? Are they the appropriate person to serve as the trustee, right? Gathering the death value. So remember, you need to get the date of death values so that you get the step up in basis, right? And what that means is it's the basis, right? Sometimes people get confused. What is this basis thing, right? So the basis is if you bought property for $100,000 and when you die, it's worth $1 million, right? Well, had you sold that property while you were alive, there would have been a $900,000 capital gain, right? But when you pass, you're going to get the step up in basis. So the new basis of that $100,000 property is $1 million. So when you go to sell it, and if you sell for $1 million, there's no capital gain. Obviously, from date of death, let's say today is April 30th, right? So we fast forward and we don't sell it until, November 15th. Well, if the value goes up from date of death, April 30th, all the way to November 15th, then you have to pay. That's the capital gain that you will have to pay, right? But you get the step up from date of death, right? No matter what you purchased it for. So that's on real estate. Got to get an appraiser to appraise a property. Stock, same thing. That's usually with your financial advisor. If you have any businesses, you got to get business appraisals. Vehicles, that's not such a big deal, but bank accounts, you got to get the statement.